Buckle up, everyone, and welcome to Carpool Rugby League, a show where two rugby league tragics talk everything rugby league on your way to and from work. I'm Shane.
And I'm Mika.
Welcome aboard and on with the show. Now, as you would have heard, someone new here this week. Welcome, Mika.
Hi.
Mika's got a bit of stage fright. She was thrown into this at the last minute. We thought, why not? Griffo overseas. He's having a wonderful time catching up with his girls. Graham again on bub duty. So I've recruited my eldest Mika, young teenager from the mountains, to basically help me out here tonight and deliver the show to you guys. Sound good?
Nice.
Nice. Excellent. Well, look, as basically what we'd do now, Mika, is as you've listened to the show, is we would talk about things like Griffo's grab, or, Graham would have a gaff. So what I think we'll do is, knowing you guys and knowing your age group and teenagers, you're into epic fails. What was your epic fail of the week?
Gotta be South Sydney's defence for sure.
Okay, at any one particular time or throughout the whole game?
Throughout the whole game, their defence had more holes than Swiss cheese. They weren't doing the game any justice. They looked like a freak show out there.
Against Penrith, it was tough. It was tough to watch. The 20 tap though, surely that should have been. Is that the pinnacle of their rubbishness?
100%.
I've never seen a lack of urgency by a football side. So there we go. Fail of the week, the South Sydney Rabbitohs defence. Well, let's go through some of the scores from the weekend and just see, and we'll see where everything is at come at the end of round 9. As Mika mentioned, the holes like Swiss cheese, 42-12, the Rabbitohs got beaten by the Penrith Panthers, 26-24 in what was an interesting game. Am I right in saying it was 24-0 at one stage or 20-0 at one stage? Anyway, it got to 24-26. The Raiders beat the Sea Eagles. 40-18, did not see that coming. Mika, Adam Reynolds out for a chunk of the season, apparently back before the finals, if all goes well with surgery. What are the Broncos' prospects without him?
That's going to be a huge loss for them. He's the man who took them there last year. Can they do it again without him now?
Kicking game's going to be an issue.
Kicking game's going to be a big, big loss for them.
In what I've dubbed Facebook rant Saturday, the West Tigers fans absolutely going to town on the refereeing. The Doggies won that 22-14. Storm 22-20 over the Titans in what was a really interesting game. Storm just shot out of the blocks, and then it looked like it was going to be a cricket score, and the Titans coming back in the end. 28-26, the old dog does it again over the Cowboys. When we go to the ladder, it's interesting. Griffo brought up a point during the year how no matter win or lose, the Cowboys, they're bludgers of a game, and maybe we're starting to see a shift. Downhill spiral for the Warriors, Mika. Last 3 games, they just haven't looked like they're doing much. 14-8 for the Knights. Is Tuivasa-Sheck, should he start maybe be put in the fullback or somewhere else, get his hands on the ball a bit more?
I think they definitely need to have a good look at their positions on the field, and I think that's one thing that they definitely have to look at training.
Okay. Yep. Sharkies, 20-10. And what was an interesting game as well, the Dragons were ahead at half time, and really they just fell asleep in that second half.
Sharks top of the table, but if you look at the teams that they've played, they've had pretty easy runs so far, pretty basic. It's kind of like the Broncos last year. They were going so strong, top of the table, beating Penrith first round last year. So could they pull the Broncos and make it all the way, or is this just a one-time thing?
Yeah, it's funny that we often say that every year that the Sharks tend to have the rub of the green when it comes to the draw. And what was a favourite amongst Parramatta fans this week is they got 2 points for nothing. So they were able to.
Well, they're winning.
Well,
They're
that's about the only thing they're winning. They're with South Sydney. When we look at the Telstra ladder, Mika, do you want to go through the Telstra Premiership ladder for us?
At first spot, we have the Sharks, and coming in at number 2, we have Storm.
Both on 16 points.
Then we have the Penrith Panthers at 14 points. Then the Dolphins have moved up the ladder at 12 points. And then we have the Manly Sea Eagles at 11 points. Roosters at 10. Broncos at 10 as well. And then Doggies just slipping into the 8 at 10. Raiders out of the 8 with 10 points. Cowboys 8 points. Knights 8 as well. Eels on 8 and Dragons on 8. Warriors lucky number 7.
Unlucky number 17 and 14.
Tigers have gotten a massive promotion with 16 points. That's six points. That's 6 more points than I thought at the start of the year. So
Look
good for them.
So good on them.
And Titans at 16 and with 4 points, and Rabbitohs lucky last with 4 points.
Yeah, I
think 2 of those points are a bye.
Yes, that's true. I think the key telling thing there when looking at South Sydney is not so much, and we brought it up last week, it's not so much the fact that they're last, someone has to win, someone has to lose. It's
just been South at the moment.
It's the fact they're 292 against, leading into a game on the weekend where quite conceivably they could be minus 300. That would be massive considering the context. Can I give a silver lining and a bit of a shout out to the Tigers? They're minus 63. Their defense is 182. That's not too bad. When you pitch it up against the Cowboys, when you pitch it up against the Raiders, the other against Colin, which is really interesting, is the Dogs 139. They've actually got a better defensive record at the moment than the Broncos. One would argue that they've probably had different caliber of teams they've played, but definitely tightening up that middle Serraldo. So it's very interesting moving forward and watching this space, I suppose. Looking at that ladder, I don't like looking at the ladder till after the first Origin game, but really I think what we're seeing is that South Sydney has Buckley's to none of making the 8. The Tigers, they've got a bit of a road ahead, but the team sitting pretty and all that, I think, is the Dogs. They're in 8th spot and they're really in amongst it.
Yeah, 100%. And Origin is always a killer for every team, especially the teams with the higher caliber. They always will have someone in that Origin squad, and that'll be a loss to their team.
It'll be interesting to see what the Dogs do this week with the Panthers.
Yeah.
Massive. Cleary's back. Should we go through the team list for this week?
Yes, we shall.
All right. On Thursday, the 9th of May at 7:50 at Suncorp Stadium in Brisbane, we've got the Dolphins. I call them the Redcliffe Dolphins. I'm old school that way. Versing again, I'm old school this way. The Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. And the team list look a little bit like this. We have in for the Dolphins is he's named there as being in. Whether he plays or not, it would be interesting. For Herbie Farnworth in the centre, that's a big in for the Dolphins for them. Interestingly enough as well, on an extended bench, Edric Lee. Interesting that he's there. Tessie Niu is out. Kenny Bromwich is in as well for the Dolphins. And they're probably the big names that really, when you've got a few on the reserves as well. For the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles, Ben Trebojevic is the key in for them. Jesse Arthur being named on the reserve bench, that's interesting that his selection is there. It sort of makes me think what's happening elsewhere. Lachlan Croker and Nathan Brown are out. Jackson Paulo is also named on this extended bench, maybe as cover. but definitely when thinking about Talau and Saab are the wingers. I know Saab didn't have the best day out last week, so I'm not too sure whether he's been named there for certain reasons. But looking at these two teams, Ashley Klein is the referee. I just look at these two teams and I think that one is coming out of last week with a lot of confidence. The other's coming out of last week, with full steam ahead and then just getting run down at the end. I think Herbie Farnworth is a big inclusion into this side. Nikarima Katoa in the Dolphins halves. Their forward pack for the Seagulls is buoyed by the fact that that they've got Jake Trbojevic in at lock. He's a really good player to tie things up. Looking at Ben Trbojevic on what would be, is he on the extended bench? I'm just trying to find where he's been named, actually. Chan Kun Tong is also in at the interchange. So Ben Trbojevic in at second row, that's what I was looking at. So looking at that team, I just think that the forward pack for the Seagulls has the edge. The key thing for me, Mika, is that coming off that loss of last week, where they really looked disjointed, the Seagulls, the flip side of the Dolphins, where they look like a really strong team. They look like a team that was with it. They look like a team that sort of had it together. I suppose for the Seagulls, they've had some really interesting weeks. They gave the Titans their first win. The week after the Titans, they played. Who did they play, Mika? They played the Eels, didn't they? So they played the Eels and then lost last week to the Raiders. The Dolphins are a bit up and down as well. Who do you think is going to win this match? I've got the Seagulls just.
Manly lost by a very small margin last week, so I think they would definitely be hungry for that win. Dolphins as well, I think. Did they win last week?
Yes, they did.
Yeah, I think they want to keep that going, keep making their way up the ladder. So I'm gonna have to say Manly. I think they're gonna be hungry for that.
Yep.
That win.
Manly win. All right. Lock them in. Manly win. In saying that, I'm a bit with you. I think Dolphins beating the Cowboys, and I've got massive questions about the Cowboys this year and where they're at. I think it's hyperinflated. Anyway, that's another thing. At Bluebet Stadium, at the bottom of the Blue Mountains in Penrith, the Penrith Panthers take on the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. It's happening at 6 o'clock on Friday. There's been some cracking games at 6 o'clock on Friday lately. So, yeah. Out's a Tago with that suspension. Tyrone Peachy is also out. Big in, number 7, and their captain, Nathan Cleary, halfback extraordinaire. They've got Paul Alamotti in as centres to cover the Tago. Also, I'm just going to see where Dane Laurie's named at 18th man, so that'll be interesting if it stays that way. Connor Tracy named in this side on what would be an extended bench. Interesting to see if he gets promoted. Again, some of the smallest bench in existence. The other interesting one I find is that these are all on the extended bench, but Jake Turpin, Toby Sexton as well named on the reserves as I think would be cover. But look, the Dogs flying high after a win. Blake Taft's now at fullback. Bronson Sherry's just seemed to have found a vein of form that probably since his mass suspension he hasn't had. When we look at the game last week against the Tigers, for me, when I watched that game, it just seemed like one team wanted to win or knew how to win, and one team just struggled to ice it. Drew Hutchinson at fullback with Matt Burton. Reid Marnie starting to come into his own. Villambi Kickout is a guy that's going to have to do well in this game. Penrith are a machine, aren't they, Mika? They are just outstanding. For me, I think that Penrith will win this one, and they'll. Whilst I think the Bulldogs will be in it for 60 minutes, I think in the end they'll win comfortably. Who wins this one for you?
100%. 100% the mighty Penrith Panthers.
They're too good, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure.
And with their captain back, Nathan Cleary, are we starting to say to ourselves, this Cleary-Luai combination, is it an audition for what could be the Origin halves?
I think it truly is, because they're both starting to really... I think this season you can see them really start to mesh and gel together and read each other's play. And
can I add something into the mix?
Yeah.
I think that both these sides will have an Origin player.
Yeah, 100%.
I think both these sides will have an Origin player, and I think both these sides will have 1-6 and 1-7. I think Matt Burton will be named at number 6.
You know what I really want to see with Origin?
What?
I really want to see Dylan Edwards given a go.
Well, he's got to be fullback,
over time and time again. He has proven himself to be a better fullback than...
Well, he's the best fullback in the game.
James Tedesco.
He was awesome last week. And against South Sydney, that's not hard. I get that. But
you really saw his dominance in...
Yeah, I agree. One guy I feel for in all this at number 20, Brad Schneider, I think he's been a fantastic replacement for Cleary over the past few weeks.
Yeah.
So he's number 20.
Agreed.
His value has just increased dramatically. Inside Goss, Fafita linked with the Penrith Panthers for $850 a season.
I saw that. That is pretty big.
I don't know. I think if he went to Penrith, if they could unlock his potential, he'd be insane. Also, during the week, Cleary, of the Ivan kind, come out and sort of said that it's about time a team like Penrith got some compensation for sort of generating players and then those players going on due to salary cap squeeze. I think it's just become a part of our game. Interestingly enough, when it wasn't affecting Penrith about 10 years ago and this come up, they were one of the clubs that said that shouldn't happen, and now they're one of the clubs that say it should. Are we at the point where we should start looking at giving concessions for teams who generate players, or is it business as usual? The way we've done things is fine. Let's keep it that way.
I think business as usual, you know.
Yeah.
With Penrith, with the Panthers' dominance, 100% their players' value would be going up. So, and it's not like their development squad can't do anything. You know, it's always in Origin week you see their development squad always coming through, always beating the other side. So
Schneider's probably a great example of that.
Yeah.
All right, the 8 o'clock game, Friday night football, brought to you by KFC, apparently. It sees the Parramatta Eels take on the Brisbane Broncos. This is going to happen at CommBank Stadium in Sydney. Cumberland Oval, Parramatta Stadium, whatever you call it. It's in Parramatta.
It's Para home game.
Home game. Good one. Key out for Penrith is Clint Penrith. Key out for Parramatta is
both West Sydney.
Is Clint Gutherson. Blaze Talangi is coming in for him. That's a massive, massive loss. That's huge. Bryce Cartwright comes in. He's on the interchange bench. Key things for them there. Looking at their halves as well, if you Sanders and Dylan Brown, the Brisbane Broncos, Jesse Arthur's out and Adam Reynolds out. Corey Oates is in on the wing. We then have Ezra Mam and Josh Rogers in at the halves. And looking at Jack Jugeski, he's also on the interchange bench. They have named an interesting replacement reserve thing. Tristan Saylor in at the replacement with, I suppose, starts to see that they've come up with a very, I suppose, creative way to try and curb any issues that might happen within the game should the halves find any issues. The Parramatta Eels at the moment, they are struggling. There's only one club struggling more than them with the calibre of players they've got, and that's South Sydney. Both hit by injuries to key players. The Broncos, it'll be interesting. They build such a big game on the back of Adam Reynolds' kicking game.
Their whole design is built around Adam Reynolds and what he'll bring to the field. So
yeah, and I think with their kicking, they're not going to have that.
I think Reece Walsh will definitely step up for kicking.
Yeah, I look at the Parramatta Eels, and I look at their halves problems. If this combination fails to fire, I think it's almost time for them to start thinking, do they put Bryce Cartwright into 5'8", just someone who can read the play, look what's around him. He's got skills in that regard. He's also probably a bit bigger than your average 5'8", but they're really struggling. And I think going into this game, they're going to have to not only tackle their heart out, they're actually going to have to create pressure. I don't think Dylan Brown has the kicking game to do that. Talangi is going to have to run like the wind. Mika Sivo seems to be getting exposed week in, week out regarding his defensive errors defensive reads. I've got the Broncos winning this one, and they're probably going to win it quite well in the end. What do you reckon?
I'm definitely going to have to agree with the Broncos. I just think they have just the better list this week, even though with the loss of Adam Reynolds.
Yep. 3:00 Super Saturday, round 10, 11th of May. At Scully Park in Tamworth, we see the West Tigers take on the Newcastle Knights. Our key outs, of course, Fainu and Caesar. Caesar out on suspension. We haven't really heard at this point in time, but yeah, Adam Caesar is definitely out. Key in is Appy Coruscant. He's there for the Tigers. Jaden Sullivan is going to be with Lachlan Galvin. I'm interested to see this halves combination. I actually think this is probably, if Sullivan can kick well, this might be a combination which may see them through the rest of the year. Actually, it depends. I think this might be the opening that Sullivan needs. John Bateman has been playing some great football at the moment as well. Seafarth off the interchange bench is also someone I think with Twal that needs to really start to make their presence known. I look at the Knights. David Armstrong's going to be at fullback. Again, Bradman Best with Dane Gagai in the centres. Hastings, Gamble, a half and 5'8", with a forward pack, which is pretty handy. I am struggling with this one, Mika, and I'll tell you why. In my mind, I thought the Knights were going to get spanked last week against the Warriors, and they didn't. They played really well, and I think when they get early ball to people like Bradman Best, who might be in the pitch for Origin, they look this different side. The Tigers, on the other hand, the Tigers just seem like the kid who never gets their way, and rather than fight their way out of it, they just cry in the corner. I I'm not going to have I think last week's refereeing, and I'm not going to get into it too much. I think there were some decisions made in that game which were questionable. I would argue a couple that were wrong. I think when you've got captain challenges coming out of the, where, and they're getting you're winning them. I think as a referee, when you have 5 or 6 captain challenges, and they're all being won by the football team, I think that causes some dysfunctionality in the game at times. That aside, I know when I struggle to pick a team, I pick the home side. This is in Tamworth. If anything, this is a Knights home game.
I think Tigers, each time, look, they have a few wins under their belt, and each time they've lost, it hasn't been a terribly big margin each time they have lost. Like,
I think for me going back, the 24-12 loss to the Dragons.
Yeah.
That for me sort of spoke volumes as to where they're at, and they really haven't recovered since then. Can I say I'm going to pick the Tigers? And you want me to tell you why?
Why?
Because they have to win.
Yeah.
I think they lose this week, their season's done.
This is a definite must-win for them. I'm going to say Knights for this one, I think.
Okay.
They're definitely... Yeah.
They showed something last week with no Ponga. They showed something last week that they can actually play good football
without
when it's required.
Yeah, I think they're gonna keep wanting that hunger and drive just to keep going, and I think they really need to prove themselves now. The last few seasons, they really haven't been performing to what they can be performing, and they do have good potential.
36-12 loss to the Bulldogs a couple of weeks ago.
I think that's definitely a wake-up call.
And then
that has to be a wake-up call for them.
And then last week they beat the Dolphins 18-14, moving into it. And Griffo and I, we were both unanimous. We sort of we thought that the Warriors would win. My question now lies with the Warriors and where they're at, but we're going to come up to that in a minute. So you've got the Knights, I've got the Tigers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a gut feeling you'll take the points there. You know what? The Knights are my bogey team.
Okay.
When I pick them, they lose. When I don't, they win. So sorry, Tigs fans. Yep. Well, 5:30 on Saturday. The St George Illawarra Dragons take on the South Sydney Rabbitohs, whose in and out list
who isn't out for South
looks huge. I'll tell you what I will do. I'll go through the Dragons. Some key players in for them. Marshke's named on the reserves bench, and so is Luciano Leilua. Be interesting to see what happens there. Francis Molo in the 18. They're pretty much 1-17. Incidentally, did you see the Jack Birds jersey last week?
Where it's spelt wrong. It's like
Dargans
instead of Dragons.
They spelt Dragons wrong on his shirt.
An error there. Dragons are good for a bit of an error, so.
Now, all right, let's just go through the team. So this is South Sydney, who they got in and out, and we'll do it this way because they're at the point where they've reported now. They got Shearbaski in from the Queensland Cup. He's on the wing. Latrell Mitchell's back from suspension. Whiten's in at centre with Michael Cheek. Michael Cheekham.
I'm very excited to see what Whiten will do. Last week he really, although they didn't win, he really stepped up and played some good footy there. So
Isaac Thompson is on the wing. Cody and halfback for them for South Sydney, Dion Tuapa. Big raps on this guy. The out of the Benji Marshall touch football mode, what worries me there is these players tend to get knocked out when they go into tackle. So that's something to think about. Moali, Cook, Kepi, Kolomatangi, Arrow, Havili. No Morka. No Murray.
Huge loss for South.
That almost tips the scales to the Dragons, doesn't it?
It does give them
that they don't have that central player in there. Okay. Right. Why is Tallis Duncan not 13?
Tallis Duncan, South have to stick with him. Tallis Duncan he always puts his all onto the field.
I find this team interesting, to say the least.
Exceptional player.
That you've got Tallis Duncan, a guy who's becoming a Cameron Murray clone, and he's on the interchange bench. Maybe Hornby, whether that happens anyway. Mamozelos in the interchange. Tallis Duncan, Tom Burgess, Matt French is on number 17, and everyone after that, you're talking about everyone after that is probably playing. You'd be lucky if they're over 16, except for one guy who's named at number 22 this week, Alex Johnson. It would be massive. What we haven't realised is just over the past few weeks when he hasn't played, the defensive work he does on that edge to stop tries. We've seen teams absolutely rip down the flank for South Sydney where he would be. If he comes back in, we talk a lot about him being a great try scorer. I think defensively, he could be a big in if he's fit for South Sydney.
South are just short on players at this point because he tore his hamstring when when he was out, he tore his hamstring. So
it's amazing he's back.
I don't think he's fully fit to be back. I think that South's just, you're fit, but you're not fit enough to play, but we'll name you on.
Yeah, that's where they're at.
And as well, just because a player's back, that's all well and good, but he hasn't played footy for what? 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Something close to that.
So fitness is going to be a big thing for him. Mika, you know where my heart lies. It lies with South Sydney. I think South Sydney, with the inclusion of Latrell Mitchell, can win. Interestingly, that when we talk about Latrell and Cody not stepping up for Demetriou, when he got sacked, Latrell went to his house apparently to sort of pass on his best wishes. This is it for Latrell Mitchell as far as I'm concerned. He has to fire. He has to be the best player on the field. My thing is, if they can put Tallis Duncan in that lock, if Whiten and Mitchell can fire and be the best players on the field and free it up for Cody. Tuapa, we've seen he's like grease lightning. If he can light this up for South Sydney this week and silence the critics against a team who are dead set struggling. Last week, the Dragons, I thought they could have won. What typified the Dragons for me was about halfway through the second half, fourth tackle, they're on their right edge. They pass the ball around and knock on. Ben Hunt pretty much drives his fist through the ground. They are a team, when they want to win, they can win. When they want to lose, they know how to lose. I'm picking South Sydney. I think you're just one loss closer to your nearest win. For me, that might be it for South Sydney. If South Sydney don't turn up this week, this could be a very, very long road ahead. I think they really need to turn up. I think they need their big players to fire. I think they need their big players to really aim up. South Sydney, if they can get their crap together, they have the Dragons, they have the Cowboys next week, and then they have the Eels. After the Eels, they have the bye. Although they're down on troops, when you've got people like Jack White and Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker in your team, Damien Cook, you would think that with Keon Kolomatangi, that could be 6 points that you could potentially get. If the same old South Sydney dealing up the same old crap come out, they could lose.
South are a team that have proven over and over that they do not have much resilience when it comes to them playing on the field. South are a team where they'll always be leading by 12, and then they'll think that's a perfect margin, and then the other team will always come in. And Penrith are a side that do that so well with South, with the I believe it was 2022 preliminary final.
Yep.
South's leading by 12, and by half time it was 12-all, and same with last week as well. Although South did get hit by injuries, I think.
This game also at Nestra Jubilee, is that an insight into their fitness, Mika?
100% their fitness.
So
I think
they're unfit.
Yeah.
They're unfit. Yeah, okay.
I'm going with Dragons.
You're going Dragons?
I'm going to call it Dragons.
That's big.
Dragons, yeah.
That's fine. That's fine. At 7:35 at Amy Park on the end of Super Saturday, we have the Melbourne Storm taking on the first place Cronulla Sharks. This is top of the table clash. This is first versus second. 2 outs for the Storm. This is at Amy Park, by the way, if I forgot to mention that. 2 outs for the Storm. Huge. Ryan Pappenhausen and Jerome Hughes. It looks like that the...
Pappenhausen is a man of injuries.
Poor bugger. It looks like it's not as bad as what it could be. This brings Faolongo into the fullback position. Munster and Tyron Wishart are the halves of their side. Out for the Sharks is Toby Rudolph. So that changes the outlook of their side a little bit, not too much. They're actually, look, this is the test for the Sharks, isn't it, Meeks? Like we can talk about who the Sharks have beaten in the last few weeks, and I think if we go back to the 32-6 loss to the Tigers, they've that's the only loss they've had. 36-22 over the Raiders. We then see them with the bye, so they didn't need to do much there. That was 2 points in the bag. They beat South Sydney 34-22 in what was a really tough game. They really had the ascendancy throughout the later part of that match. 42-6, they beat the Cowboys, flying high there. Then they beat the Raiders in Canberra 40-0. That was actually a great game.
Annihilated.
That was an annihilation. And then last week they came from behind in the local derby. I think that this is the big test for them going to Melbourne. I look at Melbourne, and I've said this the last couple of years and have been probably proven slightly wrong, that Melbourne are starting to lose their venom. They're not that team that you would...
You'd watch them 2020 and you just...
Yeah.
They were the team.
Well, you feel like you can beat them now. We're back then. You had to be a very good team to compete. Now you feel like you could go there and beat them. I think it's going to be a massive task. I've got the Storm winning this one. I think it's going to be a great game. I think it's going to be a close game. This probably will be game of the week. Who do you think wins this one, Leeks?
I don't believe it'll be very close. Like I said earlier, you've seen who the Sharks have come up against, and they're really not very hard teams. The other teams, they didn't have much bite.
Unlike the Sharks.
Sharks.
They bite well, apparently.
Oh, that's what I've been told.
Because they're sharks.
Oh.
Yeah.
No way. You're joking. Yeah, I'm definitely 100% picking Storm.
Picking Storm 100%. You heard it here first. If you've got your tips and you're struggling, 100% picking the Storm. All right. Sunday, game number 1. At Allianz Stadium at 2:00, we have the Sydney Roosters taking on the New Zealand Warriors.
I wish I could say up the Wars, but I'm really not sure.
No, I don't think so either. Tupou in for them. Spencer Linu on the bench. He no doubt will come into the game. Maria Hargreaves also named in the starting lineup. Victor Radley named at lock at number 13. So they've got some. They're coming to the point where they're full strength. Kurt Capewell out for the Warriors. They've got some interesting ins more on the interchange bench. We'll see if they actually end up playing a role. Freddie Lussick is on the extended bench. Jazz Tavanga named on the interchange. Again, it just depends how they go. Clock stud in at fullback. DWZ, Montoya, Berry, Tuivasa, Sheck. I don't know what the Warriors need to do.
They don't have the kind of edge they had last year.
Yeah, 5 weeks ago, I suppose, when you talk about the Warriors, when they beat, they were trucking along quite nicely, the Warriors. Like, they got beaten just by the Storm. They then beat the Raiders. They then come up against the Knights, beat them. And maybe this is the problem. Maybe they just haven't played certain teams. They belt South 34-4. Again, probably an easier side. 22-all draw against the Seagulls. And you can't really set your watch by them at the moment. They lose to the Dragons 30-12 in a big way. 27-24, they get beaten by the Titans, and the Titans only win. They then lose last week to the Knights. When they were winning against Tamari Martin, I thought, okay, not bad. I'm at the point now where if Tuivasa Sheck, if you're not going to get rid of Clockstud at a fullback, maybe it's time for Tuivasa Sheck to step into 5'8". He's got to get his hands on the ball sooner and more often. In saying that, I can think of two times where Tuivasa Sheck probably zigged when he should have zagged. Sean Johnson's trying to lead this side around. I think the big problem is they have problems scoring points. I think they get up there, Wade Egan. I think they've got to start getting the ball into the right people's hands. They're going to have to do it this week because the Roosters will absolutely murder the Warriors this week. I've got the Roosters winning well. I don't need to tell you how good the Roosters are. I can just go through their team list. James Tedesco would want to play fullback for New South Wales. He's going to want to prove himself that position. You've got Luke Keary and Walker really playing some good football. Sam Walker especially. Maria Hargreaves back. Brandon Smith, Lindsay Collins. I'm just looking at this side. I'm seeing so many English and New Zealand players that come Origin. They're going to be laughing because they're not going to have many out. I've got the Roosters winning this one well, Mike. So there's nothing more I need to really add to this team. Who's winning this one?
Roosters. Warriors have just proven themselves to be, again, an inconsistent team.
Yeah, they can beat easy beats, but when they come up against something or any team that decides to apply the blowtorch, they get burnt pretty quickly.
Well, they haven't won since round 5, and that's when they absolutely belted South into the ground.
Yeah, so it's funny. Like at one stage they were talking about them being top 8, and now we're the top 4 in some ways. But now we're yeah, I can't see them. They're going to have to improve a lot to make the 8. On Sunday, 4:05, the 16th place Titans take on the 10th place Cowboys at Seabus Super Stadium on the Gold Coast. Tanner Boyd is out for the Titans. The Titans have some ins on the extended bench, nothing really to add. Their spine, AJ Brimson, Randall, Foran, Verrills, and Isaac Liu is in at lock. For the Cowboys, they have, again, some ins on the interchange bench. However, another in for their spine is Chad Townsend as their halfback. This is a really tough game to pick. The Cowboys, I just don't know how to pick them. I zig when I should zag. I think the Titans... This is a game I think the Titans will be looking at going, we can win this. There's no reason why we can't.
Yeah, but yet again, Titans are a 40-minute team, you know. They can perform they can absolutely perform in the first quarter, and come the second, they're just tired out. They're just done, so...
Can I tell you why I think the Titans are going to win and who I think will be man of the match?
Why?
I think David Fifita will be man of the match, and I think that the Titans will win because of it. For no other reason, he's being touted as an $850,000 player. We were looking at this guy 3 years ago being $1 million forward. A lot of people, especially Penrith fans, are lighting up on social media saying he's overrated. 850, he's not worth it.
He's going to want to prove himself in this game.
If he wants 850, and that's good money in our game for a second rower who really is playing at a team that has had very little to no success, I think he's going to need to absolutely tear it up, and he's going to have to go the full hammer and tongs. And saying that, I think that the Cowboys have it in the interchange. I'm picking the Titans at home because like nearly every team this year, I'm hopeless at my tips, but like the Knights, if I pick them, they win. If I don't pick them, they lose. I think this will be 50-50, and I think David Fifita, they're going to have to hold the ball, the Titans, but if they can do the little things well, get to their kicks, allow Foran to do what he needs to do, AJ Brimson at fullback, I just think that David Fifita will want to prove himself. And when David Fifita is the best player on the field and the best forward on the field, his team usually wins. So I've got the Titans winning this one.
Yeah, it's definitely a flip of a coin for this game. Good point with Fifita. I think Cowboys this year have done nothing. They are not a standout team.
Just this year? They've been like that last few years, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I think, what was it, 2022 season? 2 years ago now, but they made it a decent way.
Yeah, and interestingly, with a team that's not too different, Scott Drinkwater just needs to fire this weekend, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Valentine Holmes and Drinkwater need to just play some.
I think that it's very, very tough. I'm gonna have to go with the Titans though. I think Fifita's definitely gonna want to fire up and show what he can do and what he can bring to the team. And if he can bring up a team like the Titans, and if he can bring them, Yeah, and if you can do good things with them, why can't you do good things with Penrith as well?
And a number of clubs actually showing interest now at that 850,000 mark. Well, that's it. That rounds out this round of football, round 10. Hope you go well with your tips. Hope your team wins. That is, unless you go for the Dragons, in which case I hope your team loses. But Mika, thanks for joining me. Thanks for being a part of it. Saves me doing it on my own. Listeners, have a wonderful week. Take care and bye for now.
Bye.